to recapitulate the earlier discussion yesterday uh, on your course content, we have covered almost pre-modern socio-religious and political thought in India, the diverse stance, Unit 1. We did cover Unit 2, Orientalist discourse and colonial modernity. We also discussed Unit 3, salient features of modern Indian political thought. And to some extent, we have not covered the entire, uh, unit, but I have given the infringe idea on that. And uh, and today we shall be dealing with uh, basically exactly uh, three more units we have to cover today. Early nationalist responses Ramohan Roy, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Dayanand Saraswati, and Jyotiba Phule. Moderates and extremists in the national movement, national liberation struggle. Dadabhai Naroji, M.G. Ranade, and V.G. Tilak. And we'll try to cover some portion Hinduism, Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. And Unit 7 we'll also discuss in today's class the Hindutva concept, philosophy, B.D. Savarkar and Madhav Sadasiv Golwalkar, M.S. Golwalkar. So, uh, can you recapitulate? Can you tell me, refresh back your memory, the things we have discussed that before the modern Indian political thought crystallized, it is basing upon the premise of the ancient Indian political and social thoughts. And before the Britishers, the colonial master rule over India, imperialist forces that govern India, and their ideas, political and social ideas manifested, was superimposed on Indian cultural tradition and social and political ideas and philosophy. So, as we have discussed right from the lineage society till the pastoral and agricultural society, the different sort of development happened, and new ideas germinated, and the in the domain of social and political thinking and political discourse. So, is it audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think the video will be comfortable. The video, switch of the video.
Yes, sir. You
Yeah,
up
yeah.
मतलब
Video is creating little problem with this because the audibility. Yeah. So we had a vivid discussion on this. The pre-modern Indian social and political philosophy and thought. And today we'll be dealing with uh, mainly the modern Indian political and social and political thought. So the modern Indian thought has been divided into two different phases. The first phase was that of referred as the phase of the social reform. The second phase, which is more complex and textured in many ways, as the nationalist phase. Nationalist phase, and this the social reform phase you will find, lot many social reformers in India, uh, like, the veritable explosion of intellectual activity throughout the 19th century. Right from the early 19th to end of 19th century, the Bengal Renaissance, Indian Renaissance to more appropriately, and which mostly concentrated in the Bengal and western pockets of India. Uh, the reformist movement phase, social reformist phase that started in Bengal with the auspicious of Young Bengal movement, and thinkers and social reformers like Raja Raman Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Keshav Chandra Sen, Michael Madhusudan Datta, Surendranath Banerjee, Swami Vivekananda, and many others of great personalities who molded, molded the course of, Indian, and influenced greatly the social and political thinking process of the modern India. And apart from these social reformers, the Bengal and intellectual community and also young Bengal movement, and we have the Western Indian uh, side. From the Western Indian side, Bal Sastri, Jambekar, Jyotirao Phule, Ramakrishna, Gopal Bhandarkar, Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, Swami Dayananda Saraswati. The activity was mainly in North India, basically. So these, social reformists, they influenced the and discourse of the course of the modern Indian social and political thought. These social reformists, with the young Bengal movement, right from Raja Raman Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Surendranath Banerjee, including, and in this side, the Jyotiba Phule, Ramakrishna, Gopal Bhandarkar, and Agarkar and Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who mostly was held from the northern part, North India part, domain over. So they together launched the most vigorous critique of their own society. So they found, the riddles inside the Indian society, the very paradox that was existed in Indian society, which they wanted is very regressive, and they wanted to reform the society from the scourge of the dogma, the trivial tradition, and to bring out a newness from the scourge of its backwardness. As you know, Raman Roy uh, was dead against the superstition and uh, that hung all over the land. Raman Roy, as a first social reformist, was a very progressive social thinker, and to was dead against some of the social dogmas, social practices like polygamy, infanticides, sati system, and basically, and Dayanand Saraswati uh, also criticized vehemently the existing norms and social practices existed in India during the time. So Raja Raman Roy, being a very progressive social thinker, as we have already discussed, was against the evil practices. Mainly, the he was like in Europe. It was John Stuart Mill, J.S. Mill, who worked very, actively for the liberation and emancipation of women in India, uh, Raja Rammohan Roy uh, wanted to see the change in the position of women, which constituted the crux of the matter of the central concern of the social renaissance and social progressivism under the Rammohan Roy's you know, activity. And Rammohan Roy, uh, as I have told you, as all of you know, that being a progressive social thinkers, uh, wanted to uh, abolish with the help of, although he worked very tirelessly for the uh, cognizing and diagnosing the problems of sati, female infanticide, and which he calls the major concern, and is a major stepping stone for the backwardness of the Indian society. And he wanted uh, uh, to ceaseless oppression and miseries to salvage the the women communities of India from the scourge of the very superstition, dogma, evil practices prevailing, and ceaseless oppression, women suffering, ceaseless oppression and miseries. So Raja Raman Roy worked towards emancipation and liberation of women in Indian society. At the and Dayanand also worked towards women education and also Anglo-Vedic, back to Veda. The Dayanand's call for back to Veda. Uh, that also a regeneration of a reforming the Vedantic philosophy and Vedic movement, and where women were also given a birth into participate in equal footing and also from a more, you know, very progressive way towards the, social reforms, and by bringing the women in the helm of affair in the central theme that constituted the central theme of the uh, you know, social problems and issues existed in the modern India in the early 19th century. So both Raman Roy and Dayanand Saraswati worked towards, and as you all of you know, must be read it and also you know heard of it these things. Sati practices. So you can question, sir, how come Raman abolished Sati? No, Raman also, with the help of the British administration, the colonial masters, wanted to, the Raman introduced, these are the bad, evil social practices and social systems existed in India. A integral part of the Indian society, the women community are under active subordination, oppression, and misery. And in order to their basic human rights is the major question, and they want, if they want to live like a human being with their all the rights, they need to be, this societal oppression should brought to an end. So Ramon Roy sensitized, you know the British administration, colonial masters, and this is time we should work for the. So the British did not, notice all these things, but it is, we often said, the Britishers were the benevolent despotism. The Britishers were benevolent despots, though despot, but they were working for the benevolence of the Indian society and Indian people. But these things were were indoctrinated to them, and they were made sensitized to them that this is the social practices, very oppressive social practices and social thoughts which need to be, reformed, and in order to India to be consolidated in society in its entirety. Are you following? Hello? Uh, Anyone can respond. Are you following?
sir କୋଉଟା?
ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ପଢା ଚାଲିଛି କି ଯେ ବୁଝା ପଡୁଛି ନା? Are you following it?
ହଁ ହଁ sir.
Yeah. So, as I have already told you so many thousand times, so this social reformist movement, the Young Bengal movement, by under the auspices of the Young Bengal movement, and Raja Raman Roy as a spearheader, the champion of the social reform movement of the Indian Rasa that started with Bengal. Ramon's central focus was the subordination to remove, to eradicate, remove the subordination of women and to improve the position of women, which constituted the crux and thrust of the as a central concern of his philosophy and social reform. So apart from uh, uh, there was also social dogmas, social evils like caste and cleavages issue, the caste division, untouchability, and it is not Gandhi that talked of untouchability and as a untouchability as a crime against humanity. But this Dayanand and also Raja Ramohan Roy, these are the pioneer instrumentalist of Indian NASA, Indian social reformist movement. They widely talked of, widely broadly noticed the concern of the caste system and untouchability, and they worked upon harp upon it, and they became the vehement critic of many of these contending and contagious social issues, and, and they also worked untiringly and to remove all these thoughts in Indian society and to have a progressive Indian society at large. Apart from these, the reformist scholars, you have from the north and the south, basically from the south, you have north and uh, from north, basically Maharashtra, and that is uh, Jyotiba Phule. Later on, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they also worked untiringly and a very, very untiring, though they have identified caste untouchability as a major backwardness of Indian society then, and India in order to improve and progress, the society in order to improve and to progress, that this trivial social issues, should be eradicated from Indian society. And though, but later on from north, Jyotiba Phule and later on Dr. Bhimraoji Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Dr. Bhimraoji Ambedkar, say they also work towards, you know, towards removal of subordination, oppression, subjugation of the lower caste, and to play. They strongly advocated for abolition of caste and virtual a class casteless society sort of things. And Jyotiba Phule, Dr. Ambedkar, and they wanted for the greater emancipation and liberation of the the backward castes. And so later on, uh, uh, Hindu society therefore had to be this, the early 19th century scholars and reformists, Swami Dayanand Saraswati and his, they worked for that Hindu society, they advocated for Hindu society to be reformed, and for which need to be in order to be reformed, need to be reconstituted and reorganized in a as a single community. So a very divided society on the trivial categories of caste privileges and has to be first to looked upon. Then only this society can be progress, and there will be equal social order and social harmony could be maintained, social progress could be achieved, and Indian society can be a very reformist social order can uh, take the Indian society into a new ladder and also new height. So this is uh, you know, Bihar Mehta, one of the leading, yeah, Bhikkhu Parekh. So the not analyzing, paraphrasing the the arguments of these Hindu reformers relied on one or more of the following four modes of arguments derived from the traditional enterprise. So Bhikkhu Parekh talked of that these reformists had measured for the demands of the changing time. So their concern, their work, and their ideas and their reformist activity were in a four different fold way worked. First, these reformists, as Parekh, Bhikkhu Parekh, were very noticed, very clearly and categorically noticed, the innate desire of this reformist, the social reformist of the modern India, right, starting from the Raja Rammohn Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and your Ambedkar later on part in the north side. So all the reformists they appeal to scriptures that seem to them more hospitable to their concern. So they within the Hindu social order, Hindu religious practices, these reformists wanted for a to relook, to have a relook on the Hindu scriptures, which a more hospitable manner, which in need of the exigency of the time, as they argued, is that scriptures has to relook, for a greater emancipation and greater emancipation and participation of all, the lower stratum of the society, people at the lower stratum of the society, the divided Hindu society in a more hospitable manner. Secondly, uh, they also call Sadharana Dharma, which interpreted the meaning of universal principle of morality. So this basic morality, universal principle of morality. Morality means social morality and treating everyone as a par. In a morally, it is unethical as they considered to segregating individual against individual, subordination or subjugation, oppression, or any untouchability, anything they call it is a against the basic moral concern. And sadhana dharma means principles of morality, universal principles has to be followed in this direction. These reformers also appeal for the Yuga Dharma, the principles that accord with the needs and prevailing the Yuga or the epoch. And the timing, the time conjuncture, they wanted that the prevailing time has to be looked upon, and for accordingly, the people and community has to be reestablished. Fourthly, they invoked the idea of Loko Sangraha. They argued that the practice in question had such grave consequences that unless eradicated, it would destroy the cohesion and vitality of the Hindu social order. So, the unless until the people are brought together, barring any barricades, dismantling the barricades, social barricades, the Hindu society will be fragmented and cannot be in a you know cannot be have a social cohesion, and there will be and visibility as we that was very much in. I will be coming to that side, which uh, Swami Vivekananda projected so prominently and efficiently and so vigorously the inner essence of Hindu philosophy, Hinduism, Hindutva as a philosophy, but Swami Vivekananda's perception of Hindutva and Hindu philosophy and Hinduism was totally altogether different from its parochial narrowness and what was practiced even today by uh, practicing by treating Hindus division social order in a very more uh, disintegrated manner and a non-cohesive manner. But Vivekananda, the way back to long 19th early part of 19th century and the latter part of 19th century also you know advocated for you know so Professor V.R. Mehta uh, 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 has suggested, I mean, paraphrasing these, social thoughts of these social reformers. Uh, Objectives of the reformers, the work. So Mehta recognized, identified the vigorousness and the seriousness, the strenuously uh, on which these reformists in the initial stage of the early part 19th century worked so strenuously for alteration and for changing scenario for a great change in the Indian social order and society. Secondly, the main focus, as Mehta witnessed, that the main focus of their inquiry, however, remained not the individual but the society, community, and humanity as well. And Mehta also recognized, Professor V.R. Mehta, by analyzing the discourse on the reformist social movements by the social reformers of the early 19th century, and um, made it clear that the social reformers of the early 19th century or the Bengal Renaissance and the Indian Renaissance period and particularly early 19th century. So they, instead of aggregating the concern, having their concern on individual, but they concentrate more on the social cohesion, community emancipation, and humanity to integration of humanity as a whole. So this is aggregate of individuals in pursuit of their self-interest, but as an organic whole. So though individual interests were looked upon, but the entire humanity was treated or taken into cognizance as an organic whole. So apart from the uh, the Hindu social reformers, those who uh, even uh, those who dominated the discourse of uh, the the 19th century colonial administration, and not only uh, not only assisted not only assisted to bring to remove the darkness, to bring a newness in Indian society, society, they did support. So many critics have, Ramon was more a, imperialist, dog, and Ramon was more, inclined to the imperialist, imperialist, very regimentation, imperialist dogmas, into imperialist ideas and imperialist tradition. But not necessarily that, because since they were in administration, they were ruling us. So our reformist, like Ramon, took the help of the British colonial government, colonial administration to bring reform in the society, and because the then existing society was so orthodox and so very dominating in nature, and the so-called the custodian, the guardian of the so-called moral guardians of the very regimental Hindu society. So they were, it is difficult on part of the reformer or thinker to bring a change or newness. But it is only happened through the help of the colonial masters and the colonial. They took the help of these masters. So this is Besides, you know, their this reformist ideas, the Hindu reformist ideas of the early 19th century and the entire part of the 19th century to whole. So, a Islamic political thinking and social thought uh, also influenced, also contributed to a certain extent to bring a change in Indian society. Uh, as a Muslim society, as regards to Muslim society in India, uh, so the crucial role played by Maulana Abdul Al Bari, Farangi, Mahal, Jamati ul Ulema, I Hind, and you see, uh, and many you know Islamic scholars, Maulana, uh, um, uh, that's Jamati ul I Hind and Maulana uh, Abad al Bari, Khilafat movements, they also particularly the Khilafat movement and the foundation of uh, Jamaat ul Ulama I Hind, they worked for the most part in close cooperation with the Indian National Congress and they remained opposed to the Muslim League demand for a separate homeland. So even not necessarily the Hindu progressive thinker, social renaissance that that worked for this improvement of Indian society and bringing a new nation in Indian society, and from the salvaging, rescuing the Indian dilapidated Indian social system from the scourge of the dogmas, traditions, and blind beliefs and superstitions, but to some extent, the Muslim scholars also took a very active role. And under the one of the Khilafat movement, they cooperated the Indian National Congress and also many reformist ideas. Uh, they worked hand in hand with the Congress for the improvement of Indian society and freeing the people suffering under subordination, subjugation, and oppression. So, the the crucial turning point in the among the Islamic reformers was with the emergence of Sir Said Ahmad Khan, 1817 to 99, uh, who was a harbinger of liberalism and modernity in Muslim society. Sir Said Ahmad Khan, who was also worked towards uh, but the salvation of rescuing the Indian very morbid Indian society from the scourge of its dogmas, superstitions, and also backwardness. So, so he was associated with Anglo-Oriental College, Muhammad, and also the Aligarh Muslim University latter part in 1917, 1870. So this in collab in hand in hand with Said Ahmad, Sar Said Ahmad, and other Muslim scholars like Said Mahdi Ali, Mohsin ul Mulk, Maulana Sibli Numani, Mohsin ul Mulk, and they also worked together, Said Ahmad Khan, and in separate, liberalist and and then another Isa Jalal, another Muslim scholars and a reformist, also liberal modernizer. It's called anti-modern traditionalist. So they call. So they wanted to also hand in hand with uh, the Hindu social reformist. They also worked for the you know reform of the Indian society. Are you following? Is it okay till now? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uh, the figure of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Abul Kalam Azad, in addition to this, Sir Said Ahmad Khan, Amir Ali also another Muslim reformist, and uh, you know, and Iqbal Narai was another Islamic reformist, and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who also latter part joined the Muslim reformist, and he also strongly, you know, the orthodoxy and you know the paradox in the Islamic society, removed the paradox and also blotted out the paradox in Islamic society. So, the Islamic scholars also write from, Sir Ahmad, Sir Said Ahmad till Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. So they also, worked also and assisted Congress, and to great extent, Muhammad Ali Jinnah also, a great liberal and secular politician of the time, also worked in Congress within which was mostly Hindu dominated, but later Jinnah was uh, became infamous for his demand for the Pakistan and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, two nation theory. And so, but initial period, Jinnah was a Western educated. Jinnah was a more a liberalist, and he also wanted to bring some sort of change in within the Islamic social order. Is it okay? Are you following? Hello? Yeah. So when the the course of during the course of the reformist movement, uh, the uh, revolt from the lower orders, the lower stratum of the society, the untouchables, the low-born castes, that was in the lower stratum and the bottom line of the Hindu hierarchical social order. So the 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 communities and the social groups and communities, those who were in the bottom line of the social order, and who were also treated as untouchable, which was a very evil practice by as recognized and cognized by the social reforms of the time. So uh, uh, this the 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 Dalit revolutionary, the Dalit progressive thinkers, uh, Jyoti Rao Phule, E.V.R. Ramaswamy Naikar, Periyar, Rameswar Periyar, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar are the three prominent figures. Though there is some dozens of Dalit scholars and philosophers, radical thinkers, and social reformists, they worked for the you know upliftment of and for the mainstreaming of their the lower stratum people of the lower stratum of the society. But they 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 coined the term the Dalit. So the Dalit together they brought lower caste particularly organized, which Ambedkar talked of, organize, educate, and uh, and revolution, and organize, agitate, and educate. So this means, so the toiling masses, the social subordinated communities to brought together and to be brought together, and they should have a social cohesion before the bringing the cohesion of the Indian society. First of all, they want the toiling masses, the subordinated communities, the untouchables to get together and form a front, and they to oppose the anarchic, oppressive social order, which is is alienating individual against individual, alienating person against person. So they vehemently criticize and oppose the Hindu social order, which B.R. Ambedkar wrote his Hidden Island, the riddles of Hinduism and casteless society. Casteless society. If you go, you know, this it's a look like a Bible of the Dalit literature, the casteless society and the riddles of Hinduism, and in the latter part, following this, there are some Dalit scholars, uh, one Kancha Elaya from Andhra Pradesh, undivided Andhra Pradesh, was in Osmania University professor who also following the lines of the Hindu, I mean the Dalit intellectuals and the social reformists, like Jyotirao Phule, EVR Periyar, EVR Ramaswamy Periyar, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Kancha Ilaya, and many others. So they also. Yesterday I was talking to you. I was telling you about the this subaltern groups, which you have the Partha Chatterjee, Sunil Khilnani, and Sudipta Kaviraj, and Ashish Nandi to also a great extent. These are the the very subordinated, oppressive communities, those who are out of the mainstay of the social intercourse and the social activities. So this they wanted to liberate these sort of communities, those who are in the lower stratum, and they wanted they organized a revolution, a revolt against, and inspired, organized, and educated the Dalit communities, those who are in the bottom line of this in the Hindu social fabric and Hindu social order, and to bring a revolution so that to liberate them and emancipate in the social order. And for that, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar uh, 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 wanted to reform the Hindu society and read the Hinduism and the riddles of Hindu past. He went for a post-mortem analysis of the Hindu philosophy and the Hinduism and the Hindu scriptures in the textures and all the things. And on the basis of that, he his masterpiece, The Riddles of Hinduism, Ambedkar clearly uh, you know, uh, brought the thought, the paradox in the Indian Hindu society, the Hindu philosophy, in the Hindu social religious practices, the Hindu religion. So, say, so the mainstay, their main central concern was to how to liberate their own people, those who are the lowest stratum and bottom level of the hierarchical, then divided Hindu society, Hindu social hierarchy, the subordinated, oppressed, and the subjugated peoples to uh, communities, and those who are subjected to continuing humiliation and degradation through practices like untouchability, violent exclusion from society as such constituted the overriding experience of the frame. As you know, the very lively experience in Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Bhimji Rao Ambedkar during his childhood, when was visiting his father and his uh, uh, you know his mother's home, his ancestral home, on a bullock cart. They are thrown out of the bullock cart, and in the school also. And Dr. B.R. Ambedkar faced humility and humiliation, lot of humiliation, and uh, because of the practice of untouchability. So this led to the you know this led to the key aspect of the Dalit movement, and organization of the Dalits in case of Periyar, non-Brahmin liberation, where it was their exclusion from the arena of knowledge that was main mechanism of their oppression. And and the in a Dalit community organization of the Dalit communities, and wanted to in their gambit the non-Brahmin liberation. They wanted to you know they for a cohesion in society inside the Hindu social order. They wanted, a major breakthrough, a major through revolution. So that is why Ambedkar called, gave a clarion call for educate, agitate, and revolt. You know, and organize. Educate, agitate, and organize. Unless until you are educated, you cannot organize, and unless you are not organized, you cannot agitate. So Ambedkar also visualized for a great breakthrough in the by cleansing the scourge of and only can bring the dynamism in Hindu society and so-called the sorry not Hindu society, they were not using the dynamism in an Indian society, a integrated Indian society, we can progress towards what can happen. So now I'll focus on the am I audible? Hello, hello,
Yes, sir.
is it audible now today?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
So you whatever we are discussing, it is like very miniature because in a short span of 1 or 2 hours you cannot cover so many things. But I am giving you the broad spectrum, the ideas of that. So any doubt you in course of your reading, having a intense reading, you can any doubt raised in your mind, you can ask me anytime. As I have told, you know, about the list. Leave me about only 3 4 days because of this, evaluation work going on. I am the chief examiner in one of the evaluation zone in Bhubaneswar. So after the evaluation time, I'll be more comfortable after 15th. When your exam, when your semester exam, any idea?
Zune Ray.
June. Yeah. So you should have a quick, you know, uh, at least you should have a cover the entire syllabus once, and uh, then you just go for a thing we can discuss. And if people are in a very diverse areas, so scattered over this interstate. Otherwise, earlier one used to be the students used to come to Bhubaneswar Study Center, and those who are, and they have other study center also throughout the state. So in that case, very in a classroom a transaction is a very and more what you say more yes. So as I told, though it's like from the COVID time, I am also I was looking after the government's digital learning, e-content development. All the I was looking after the school and mass education directorate of higher secondary education. But to somehow I am not able to reconcile because of its some very you see, like sometimes it is not audible, sometimes internet issues, sometimes you will not have any interaction. So a classroom should be lively. A classroom will be lively if you did, the instructor and the recipients, they can have a constant interaction, and there is change of exchange of ideas and queries. It's unless until you questions, so you may not get whatever. It is like a unilinear approach, and like one way traffic. So no scope, very little scope for interaction. So that means what I am delivering, whether it is uh, uh, reaching your level or you are comfortable with my deliberation or you have some problem in my deliberation. So that that is why I am telling in let us discuss less, but that is why I am repeating again and again. Many things I am repeating again and again so that it could be very prominent points and it could be underlined at a very prominently. Yeah, just a minute. So, have you any query? Whatever we have completed one unit, you have any query? Course work रे सब कौन course work रे कौन assignment सब लिखिଛ? Can anyone tell me? देखिवा कौन करछ माने just गोटे लाइन में कह परियो. जो ये जो assignment लिखिलो कि जने कहलो को सब्जेक्ट को टॉपिक ऊपर लिखिछ assignment. तो पुरे माने दिया हितिबो क्वेश्चन गुडाए माने आदर गोटे तमे केतरा 8टा असाइनमेंट करथियो बोधे.
हाँ
हमने
सर
8टा असाइनमेंट कौन गोटे असाइनमेंट करछ कहलो मते गोटे टॉपिक माने एई पेपर रु किछि करछ कि ने अलगा
Yes, sir.
को टॉपिक कहलो कौन करछ देखियो कि कौन करछ
Political thought in modern India.
political thought in nee political thought in modern India it is a very vast it is the entire माने तो को particular aspects माने there is you see first the scope of your गोटे क्वेश्चन निश्चित गोटे टाइम फ्रेम थिबो गोटे तार ऑब्जेक्टिव वेरी क्लैरिटी and there is scope is limited scope political thought in modern India means it is very एभली नथिबो क्वेश्चन टा कहि परिबो कि कैन एनी ऑफ यू टेल मी द क्वेश्चन लाइक मो जो कहूची explain the relevance of social reforms movement in India in early 19th century. जोटा कि मुझे कहीकि गली राजा राममोहन ईश्वर चंद्र विद्यासागर एंड एमाने जो एंड ईवीआर पेरियर एंड योर रामस्वामी ईवीआर रामस्वामी पेरियर एंड दिस एमाने जो फास्ट पेज गोटे स्कोप ये रहइबो कि तमरो गोटे एस्पेक्ट रहिथिबो discuss the various aspects of Muslim thoughts in India. किंतु गोटे क्वेश्चन टे केवल गोटे लार्जर होल हे परिबो. Anyway, तेणु नहीं जो असाइनमेंट सबमिट सब कलो कोठी रीजनल सेंटर भुवनेश्वर ना तुम्हारे जो रेस्पेक्टिव स्टडी सेंटर जो सब अछि तुमे एक अछि
नहीं सर, स्टडी
नहीं सर
सेंटर है.
स्टडी सेंटर
रीजनल स्टडी सेंटर
रीजनल स्टडी सेंटर
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so you
सो यू
altogether
ऑलटुगेदर
hello
Yes, sir.
यस
हाँ
सर यस
सर
सर हाँ सर
okay
ओके
now
नो
yeah
या
now we'll discuss early nationalist responses Ramon Roy, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Dayanand Saraswati, and Jyotiba Phule, which I have already talked you in a greater cell, in a greater detail. This basically Bankim Chandra, the very important aspects of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's philosophy and social outlook, and in his perception and his perception and ideas of nationalism was unique. And Bankim Chandra Chatterjee wanted to conceptualize nationalism in its indigenous term. He was like the cultural nationalism. Later on, I will tell you. Mahadev Sadasiv Golwalkar, Mahadev Sadasiv Golwalkar, which I have written a chapter in which is now a part of the course curriculum and syllabus of Delhi University postgraduate students. and in the political and social philosophy of Mahadev Sadasiv Golwalkar, M.S. Golwalkar. Golwalkar was, is a Hindu radical thinker. While discussing, I will tell you the detail. So, in a broad cell, I want to tell you that uh, Ramon's major contention was to rescue the dilapidated Indian, crisis-ridden Indian society was suffering from superstition, blind beliefs, dogmas, evil practices, social practices, and for that, Ramon given priority, mm, uh, given priority and adequate attention to his political ideas, and uh, and people, his uh, critics were against, who didn't spare Ramon as a imperialist dog, as an imperialist, is a supporters of imperialism. But Ramon, in order to bring change in Indian society, in order to bring a social change, and in order to like how come his ideas on Sati was such a very evil social practices existed in modern India in the beginning. You know, the the widow of the deceased, the widow of the deceased husband was forcibly put behind the burning fire in the funeral. So Raman couldn't tolerate, resisted it. This is the most heinous and horrendous crime against humanity, against will, even though even in against will, and he told already about the against will. Even there is a will, but this is inhuman, torturous, and it's a treat this society people as a more savage than a noble savage. So Raman, in order to bring the Sati practices to an end and towards women education and female fertilizers, like, so that doesn't mean way back to early 19th century, Ramon talked of was fighting against the infanticide and female fertilizers. Today it is rampantly because I was a social scientist in Indian Council of Medical Research in New Delhi. I was, uh, you know, I was the researcher for the Odisha part as a social scientist, and I researched on the abortion issues in Odisha, Indian society. I was taking care of, looking after the Odisha part. Female, 99.5% female fertilizers, I mean abortions happen because with the objective and also, very clear cut clarion loves a female fertilized to kill a girl child, the female fetus, to remove a female fetus. So this was still persisting. My study finding clearly showed that still the early 19th century issue still is prevailing in a wider, wider way, and it's still rampant and still prevalent in a wide. So my point, see, by the help of the British colonial masters, Ramon took them into confidence and took their help and assistance to erase, to fight against the social odds and the social evils, like sati practices, female ferticide, and women education, to emancipation of women in societal activities, and to join the educational mainstream. So that's why Ramon uh, is he played a very progressive role in particular historical context. Though his critics criticized him as a loyalist, a supporter, and a buttresser of the imperialist forces. But Ramon, in order to bring change, newness, a reform in Indian society, by removing all the social ords and practices he builds, took the help of the British colonial master. I'm repeating again and again because of your more pride. And Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, as I have told, is a unique, is very epitomized in his very, is is widely acclaimed for his systematic expounder, the expounder of the idea of nationalism in India. Bankim Chandra, conceptualizing his nationalism, his perception of nationalism, had a indigenous inclination. So his perception of nationalism was more indigenous than the Western. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then, religious political ideas, Dayanand Saraswati, as I have already I've spoken, I've already detailed you in a brief. Dayanand, who appeared in between 1825 and 1883, so founded the Arya Samaj, had concerns similar to those of Ramon, primarily a social reformer. The latter believed that the success of the British in subjugating the Hindu society was largely due to the divisive nature and also the failure of realizing the strength. See, the very Dayanand also supported the, you know, the, you know, uh, the Dayanand supported Ramon's very catching the thrust. Ramon's advocacy, Ramon's, very Ramon Roy's very objective revelation and world recognition of the, why the Britishers ruled. The British imperialist forces and rule because of the, the lack of unique uniqueness of Indian societal order and lack of strength and so much of divisive nature of the society. So, in order to fight against the British, first to bring a cohesion in Indian society, to gap the divisiveness and bridge the divisiveness in Indian society, and for bringing the social cohesion, bringing a reform within the Indian society. Both Dayanand and Ramon, they were also took the help of the Britishers. But Dayanand did not support in the literal spirit. Neither the philosophers, the reformers supported the British, the imperialist forces in literal spirit, on from their inner philosophy and inner core of their heart. So they supported the imperialist government because of to fight against the Hindu divisiveness, the social Indian social disintegration, Hindu social disunity, and to bring unity within the Hindu social order and Indian society. So both Dayananda and Ramon took the help of the British imperialist forces, the British colonial government to bring the change. So Dayanand, through his Arya Samaj and carried on his reformist activities, and his clarion call was back to Veda. So he also identified, spotted, Dayanand spotted the black holes Vedantic tradition. To he wanted the 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 what is the sort of things distortion happened to the Vedantic tradition has to be relooked from its original Vedantic tradition. So he gave a clarion call back to Veda, go to the original Veda and the inner essence of the original Veda, and Dayanand wanted people to know that. And the distorted version of the Vedantic tradition which was carried on by the social order of the Hindu regimental orthodox social order. Dayanand was a social reformer with almost no political way. Dayanand was least interested. Dayanand had no political inclination. He was mere a social and religious reformist. The reason for in the contractual and colonial rule, he envisaged political role of the Samaj, his Arya Samaj, would certainly have attracted the attention of the government. That was not desirable, especially when the organization was at its infancy. ତେଣୁ जो से आर्य समाज से किसी पैट्रोनेज चाहिए नहीं ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट कारण से सेतबले जो गुड़ा इनिशियल दी प्राइमरी जिनस गुड़ा करूथिले सेटु से गवर्नमेंट किंतु latter stage जेतबले से कैरी ऑन करी गले तांकर कैरिड ऑन हिज एक्टिविटीज he had also faced severe challenge from the orthodox Hindu orthodox society, and that time he also sought help from the colonial government and uh, uh, and for the to carry on his activities. So Jyotiba Phule, a social revolutionary, against the the evil practices of caste system, social hierarchy, and social subordination, and the Dalit, and he was more a revolutionary and social revolutionary, wanted dismantling the Hindu rigid social order, which was further carried forward by Dr. Baba Saheb Bhimji Rao Ambedkar. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Bharat Ratna Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as I have told, Ambedkar was a vehement critic. Also, Ramaswamy Periyar and Jyotiba Phule did not write so much, but Dr. Ambedkar, being a voracious reader, a scholar par excellence, and is a repository talent itself. And Dr. Ambedkar made a very thorough, scrupulous scrutiny as post-mortem analysis of the evils of in the thoughts in Hindu, religion and Hinduism, and wrote his masterpiece, Riddles of Hinduism. Hindu समाज और Hinduism रो कौन सबू what are the major paradox of the riddles कौन तारो कौन विभिन्न the cross side कौन and cross and fronts of the Hindu philosophy and Hinduism. So now we come to another, the moderates and extremists. With this, the Hindu social reformist movement come the Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress, who spearheaded the national liberation struggle against the British imperialist forces with the colonial master, the colonialism, British colonialism, and the entire national liberation movement. You find in the early stage of the national liberation, Indian National Congress, you have the moderates, and the latter phase, another group who also oppose the moderates, the subtle, the people who as the extremists, those who rejected the very subtle ideas, rather wanted to give a checkmate to the British imperialism and to teach a lesson to the imperialist forces that the nationalism, the extremists see altogether in a different mode. So both from the the moderates and extremists, Mohanchand Karamchand Gandhi, the entry of M.K. Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, inaugurated a completely new phase in the Indian freedom struggle. can easily shown by contrasting it with the earlier phases, namely the moderates and nationalists. Besides the moderates and the extremists, Gandhiji, Mohandas Gandhi, Karamchand Gandhi, has launched or inaugurated altogether completely different phase. So it's a complete shift from the moderates and the extremists. So କଥା ହେଲା ମଡରେଟ୍ ମାନେ କ'ଣ କରୁଥିଲେ? ମଡରେଟ୍ ମାନେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଇମ୍ପେରିଆଲିଜମକୁ ଅପୋଜ କରୁଥିଲେ. Not that they are supporting the British colonialism. The moderates, they were, they are opposing the British imperialism in a democratic, peaceful and constitutional manner. Whereas the extremists were yeah, some technical glitches. Actually, the frequent phone calling, uh, yeah. Coming back to the earlier discussion, so the both the moderate and extremist, though opposing but in a different fashion, though opposing colonialism, but in a different way, in a different method they follow. The moderates were opposing colonialism in a constitutional manner, in a peaceful democratic manner. The extremists adopted a strategy of direct action. They were confronting with the imperialists. No, this is what Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai. So they were opposing. This is Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So Swaraj is my birthright. You Britishers, the colonial master, have no intake over it. So it is my birthright and I should have it. So this is the method, the strategy adopted was different. One adopted the constitutional method, others direct action method, opposing payment. So you you have the moderate nationalists like Surendranath Banerjee. You have G.K. Govind, Mahadev Govind Ranade, Gokhale, G.K. Gokhale. You have Dada Bhai Naroji. You have these are the like Surendranath Banerjee, Dada Bhai Naroji, and B.G. G.K. Gokhale. You have the moderates nationalists. So they had a they appealed the British colonialism for freedom of their motherland through a constitutional, democratic, peaceful manner. So in many ways they supported the British imperialist government in order to bargain for their freedom. They supported, in many cases, they supported the imperial government to bargain, to have a bargaining strength for the liberation of the motherland and more freedom to their people. But on the other side, the extremists, as I have told, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Aurobindo Ghosh. So these extremists, they did not reconcile with the colonial master. They rather wanted, they rather adopted a direct strategy of direct action. They intimidated the government. They warned the government, the imperialist government, look, this is our domain, this is our basic right. You cannot have freedom on it. So you have to liberate us, you have to give us our right, you have no takeaway from this. So B.G. Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai and Aurobindo Ghosh. So these the extremists, they directly challenge the British imperialists and uh, and they they did not compromise. They did not compromise with the you know uh, the despotic rule of the imperialists. They challenged the British imperialism and their bargain for their you know liberation, their freedom, and as I have told, uh, Bal Gangadhar Tilak clearly warned the Britishers, look, you have no mainstay in our liberation or freedom. Since freedom is my birthright, you people, you the British of the colonial master have no right over my rights. So you have to quit and liberate me, give my freedom to me. So this is the thing they challenge that. So the so what is the actually the importance of Lal Bal Pal in the extremist movement, extremist nationalist movement? The extremist ideology created a leadership trio, popularly called Lal Bal Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal. While critiquing the moderates, ମାନେ ଏମାନେ କଣ ହେଲେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମଡରେଟ ମାନଙ୍କୁ କ୍ରିଟିସାଇଜ କରୁଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କର ଇଣ୍ଡିଜେନସ୍ ଭୋକାବୁଲାରୀକୁ ଇଏ କରୁଥିଲେ ସ୍ୱଦେଶୀ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଜେନସ୍ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲିଷ୍ଟିକ ଟର୍ମ ୟୁଜ କରୁଥିଲେ ସ୍ୱଦେଶୀ ବୟକଟ ଆଣ୍ଡ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଏଜୁକେସନ ସେମାନେ ସ୍ୱଦେଶୀ ଉପରେ ଇଏ କରୁଥିଲେ ହାର୍ପିଂ ଅପନ କରୁଥିଲେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ କଲୋନିଆଲ ଗୁଡ୍ସ को ବୟକଟ କରୁଥିଲେ ଆଉ इंडियन नेशनल एजुकेशन को एम्फासाइज होती जस्ट ए मिनट एमाने कोन की ए जो लाल बाल पाल एमाने ए जो ट्रायो एक्सट्रीमिस्ट लीडरशिप नेशनलिस्ट एमाने महाराष्ट्र पंजाब बेंगल it's a frequent phone call is disrupting actually I don't know the mechanism exactly how to stop the incoming calls Hello, welcome back. As yes, to regain the discussion. So, ये जो लाला लाजपत राय, बिपिन चंद्र पाल and बाल गंगाधर तिलक एमाने बेसिकली पंजाब महाराष्ट्र बेंगल एरिया बहुत माने तांकर एक्टिविटी सेंटर का माने they are mostly confined to the three provinces where they spreaded their spread the movement like anything, and it was a very direct action approach, and Britishers also. So they also, similarly, in Maharashtra, the extremists, particularly, they introduced the Shivaji festival. So through Shivaji festival, they integrated more number of youth, more number of youth, the ministry of the liberation struggle and nationalist movement. And Shivaji, uh, and in Maharashtra, and the Oriental idea of revivalism in Peshawar, and so they you know the major concern contention of their political philosophy is separated. Uh, Unlike the moderates, they separated and argued the gradual introduction of democratic institutions in India. Tilak insisted on immediate Swaraj or self-rule. So not like like the moderates, they bargained for step by step, getting concession, demanding concession and concession. But direct action approach of the extremists, they immediately demanded and against imperial self-rule and imposed his self-rule. They they campaigned for self-rule and warned the British imperialist government that that this is our land and we have to rule it. You have no right to rule. So Swaraj, so they charioted this thing. And so this unit, I know, uh, like ଆମେ ଯଦିଓ କହିବା ଯେ ଯେ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜୀଙ୍କର with the entry of Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, with the national liberation struggle, has took the liberation struggle, the nationalist movement, gave a new turn, maybe a U-turn as you say, but we cannot dismiss the moderate and extremist effort as futile simply because historical law they discharge in conceptualizing national struggle in an organized manner. किंतु ଯାହା ହେଲେ ବି ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କର ରୋଲ ଯାହା ରହୁ କି the later part of the 19th century and early part of 20th century, the national movement under leadership of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi and you tell Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, and you have Motilal Nehru. So the last phase of liberation struggle, though has a momentum in the annals of the entire liberation, national liberation history, but you cannot discard and dismiss the pioneering and instrumental role played by the moderate souls of the extremists and the way they conceptualize nationalist spirit in a highly organized manner. So Gandhi's success as a leader of a gigantic mass movement against perhaps the most organized imperial power, largely due to organizational backing of the Congress that reminded the mere October annually ventilating the events against the British as well as the setting scores against the fellow congressmen as dates back to the organized effort organized effort of the moderates and the extremists. ତେଣୁ ଆମେ କହିବାକୁ ଗଲେ though India got independence 1947, but way back to the its initial in struggle against the imperialist forces by the moderate and extremists, that the clear-cut approach to remove the battle out the oppressive imperialist forces was a clear-cut visionary version, and that gave a contested roadmap, provided a contested roadmap to the latter part of nationalist leaders to carry forward and obtain the independence from the colonial masters. Did you follow? Is it the discussion is going okay? Or you have any problem? In between some infrequent, disruption is happening because of some technical snag. So I don't know how to stop the incoming call. So what would a call ଆସିଲା ବେଳକୁ ସେ ପୁଣି ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଇଯାଉଛି. Yeah. Uh, now we so in Hindu reform perception of Hindu philosophy and Hinduism had two important national figure personality who had a very towering, you know, acclamation. You have, Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo, those who brought a greater in the 19th century due to the spread of modern education and growing public activities, they have developed social awakening in India. So, so the political leaders they also created a very you know very creative and constructive role. Souls apart from besides their political activities, political ideas, they also thought of in socially and the social reformers, those who inculcated the new ideas in the Indian society, also basically honored by political leaders of the nationalist movement and the renaissance of Hinduism that started with Raja Ram Mohan and Dayanand Saraswati and Satya Sodhak Samaj of Jyotiba Phule, Ramakrishna Mission under Swami Vivekananda also contributed immensely to bring a renaissance in Hinduism and the role of its, the uh, Hindu reformers. Swami Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda founded the Ramakrishna Mission and the broad platform under which banner Vivekananda professed his advocated and inculcated his ideas enshrined in Hindu philosophy and wanted to bring to public the inner essence of Hinduism, which has been distorted by some forces in divided Indian society. So the Vedanta philosophy was one of the most important ancient philosophies of India, which believed God alone was real and visible, world was unreal, and the observation of individual soul, and one's own soul was the goal of every human. So Vivekananda believed that Hindu Vedantic tradition, Vedantic philosophy believes in God, nothing is real. God alone is real. The, the established Vedantic philosophy believed God as alone real and visible. Vivekananda, following the Vedantic tradition, preached his teacher, preached his disciples, and did not believe the path of renunciation and asked people to perform their duties in the spirit of selflessness. So, as Karl Marx, propounded that human alienation, look how the interlinkage, human alienation happens. Human being is doing everything, well, but renouncing is to the God. You see, Bhagya, Bhagavan, Eman Sabu. So whatever I am getting, it is because of my Bhagya, and God is doing it. So Vivekananda did not believe that. So we established distorted Hindu Vedantic philosophy. He wanted to bring a newness in that, you know, that he advocated for to perform individual to perform his duties in the spirit of selflessness. And he founded Neo Vedanta philosophy over the assertions of, over the dogmatic assertions of, traditional Vedantic philosophy. Vivekananda founded Neo Vedanta philosophy. कौन Neo Vedanta philosophy कौन रहिला? ना, Vedanta believed in the oneness between God and man and solidarity of the universe. ତେଣୁ ଏଠି human alienation, attributing everything human endeavor to God was rejected by out and out by Vivekananda, and rather he advocated, he professed, he made it clear and categorical that the unique oneness between God and man, and he talked about the solidarity of the universe. Another thing Vivekananda did not stand for, accepted. Vivekananda did not accept. Vivekananda did not accept life of renunciation, but stood for selfless action in the services of humanity. Hence, service of man should be considered the service of God. Action, not contemplation, should be the motto of life. And Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Sri Krishna has karmanya vadhikaresu mahapareshu kadachana, they say. So one is to be inclined to action. Vivekananda said, selfless action should be the only motto and ethos of human activity, human action. Vivekananda propagated the principle of universal tolerance and believed that different religious faiths were different paths to reach the goal of liberation. Vivekananda fundamentally was a critique of the orthodox Hindus, the traditional Vedantic tradition. He believed in religious solidarity. He believed in, universal toleration of all religion. In the Chicago Religious Congress, if you have access to listen Vivekananda's that speech, It is now viral in many ways. You can now, in the age of ICT-based education system, you can have the access to Vivekananda's that Chicago Religious Congress speech. Hindutva, Hinduism is not a religion. It is a philosophy, a way of life, a path to salvation and reaching the goal of humanity. So he propagated universal tolerance of all religion, and as every religion have its their own path to reach the goal of liberation. And one more thing, Vivekananda's concept of nationalism uh, say good indigenousness, Indianized, not the Western paradigm, based upon premises upon the Western paradigms, Western terminologies of the Western version of nationalism, and Indianized in a more human touch that he wanted to awaken the Indian people, those who are lying in deep slumber, and wanted see the emergence of a strong and self-confident India, which would give the message of the Vedanta to the world. So Vivekananda visualized, envisioned the unique greatness of the Vedantic tradition, and he called upon his countrymen to awaken, from the deep slumber and to get direct to run into action and not contemplation, and so that he can send a strong message to the world about the inner essence of the Vedantic tradition. Vivekananda was highly critical of the British rule in India because he held that due to their rule, Indians lost confidence, famines engulfed the land, farmers and artisans were reduced to poverty and penury. So Vivekananda was a vehement critic, a strong content, you know, vehement opponent of the British imperialism, British rule in India. And he could visualize the unique greatness of the people of India in the Bharat Varsha on the tale. And the Britishers only ruined Indian indigenous uniqueness and greatness. And he called upon the people to awaken from the deep slumber and to get assembled to work, to action, to add with the action so that they can reach the pinnacle of the glory and the zenith of the height of their uh, you know development, their you know societal upliftment and, regeneration, and virtually regeneration of their past glory, and which has been decayed by some of the imperialist forces and the previous invaders. I mean the Mughals, and also the Indian indigenous treasure and uniqueness of in culture and its action philosophy has to be regenerated with a newness and honest and the youth forces. That is why he called upon the youth forces to not to wasting time, criminal wastage of time, just going for a criminal wastage of time, energy, and rather to join the national mainstream and promote the richness, unique greatness, and uniqueness of the Indian history. So he, so Vivekananda uh, advocated for unity and oneness of the Indian people despite their outward diversity. And uh, his message was to remove caste differences, to inculcate the spirit of social solidarity. Again, I was telling you. So, because it is a human centric philosophy, and he was also in that against the Hindu social order and also Hindu social hierarchy. He was in favor of similarity in the teachings of different religion, and Indian consisted of all religious communities. And he found he did not criticize any religion as the Islam or any other the Zoroastrians, the Christians, or any other religious communities. They attack on Hindu philosophy. But Vivekananda did not accuse any religious community, do not oppose any, and he innately witnessed, internalized the unique greatness of each and every the ideas of each and every religious belief system. And Vivekananda was a great democrat because Vivekananda advocated democracy, and for democracy in order to strengthen needs vigorous participation of the young people who can carry forward democratic government in India with early establishment from, from the scourge of the British colonial. And over and above, Vivekananda not only is a religious reformer, but a great social reformer, wanted a progressive social change, eradication of poverty and many sort of things. Social change are based on Indian concept of history. Vivekananda wanted social change from the rubrics of its history, not in the platform of the Western paradigms and all. So he was he he was in favor of transition of Hinduism, very Hindutva, traditional, confounded, you know, uh, diversified, and also these things, what do you say, eroded sort of ideas and practices. They wanted the transition of Hindutva philosophy. Social and political ideas he wanted to promulgate. The rise of Hinduism and Indian nationalism. So he strongly advocated for rise of Hinduism and Indian nationalism. And he did not support, remember, underline, did not support at any cost, at any way, the British nationalistic national concept of nationalism, the British educational system. And Sri Aurobindo, who was also very compatriot of Vivekananda at the time, was also Hindu philosophy, is a very great champion of Hindu philosophy, and also brought a newness to spiritual nationalism, like Aurobindo Ghosh, who was a prominent figure in the renaissance of Hinduism. Another Alike, alike Swami Vivekananda, he was also a prominent figure in the entire, domain of, you know, Hindu Renaissance, Hinduism, a Renaissance in Hinduism. Aurobindo carried forward the development of Neo Vedanta propounded by Vivekananda, declared true message of Vedanta was selfless action or karma yoga. Yogic tradition, karma yoga. In the theory of karma yoga, a person was enjoined to perform his duties without aspiring for the fruits of thereof. The Gita taught us to fight against injustices because life is a series of struggles. So again, the Neo Vedanta philosophy was founded by Vivekananda, was carried forward with a missionary zeal in a very true realistic spirit. And the Renaissance of Hinduism, which called for the awakening of Indian soul, which was in deep slumber, as Vivekananda was confounded it, and recalled the past glory of the Vedanta through Vedantic philosophy and its historicity found at the immense. And as I have told, uh, initially Sri Aurobindo was an extremist. He was opposing the British vehemently. Aurobindo differed from the moderates on the concept of essence of politics and the ideas of nationalism. Aurobindo, uh, in the line of Tilak, strongly for Swadeshi nationalization and boycott, which the four major strategies, methods to be adopted for national liberation, for the freedom struggle. And for that, Aurobindo did not compromise at any sense the Indianness and the cultural ethos of India and the spiritual sanctity and greatness of the Vedantic tradition. Aurobindo's theory of nationalism was based on Vedanta philosophy, which I have already told you, which saw unity and oneness in man and God. Man doing the action, man, the action of man is attributed to God as the earlier, bigots Hindus, those who are believing, but Vivekananda rejected the notion and confounded that the oneness of man and God, the human and God, that is the essence of Hindu Vedantic tradition, Hinduism. So Aurobindo Ghosh witnessed the strength of a nation basing on the ideas of unity embodied in a political society. Uh, and Aurobindo uh, advocated, believed in the regeneration of Shakti, the power that was physical, moral, material, and spiritual, the combination of four, put together should constitute the basis of the nationalism. So he believed in the deep divine purpose. He strongly propounded the deep divine purpose in India's freedom struggle. And India to attain independence. Aurobindo also criticized people who claimed that due to cultural, social, racial, and linguistic diversity and division in Indian society, India could never become a nation. So the people, those who were telling, like, of course, the radical subalterns, scholars, that is, given the diversion, divisiveness of India on cultural, racial, and linguistic ground, India cannot be united as a nation. But that idea was rejected by Aurobindo, and he propounded in place spiritual nationalism, the unity, as we have already called, the oneness of human and God on basis of the propounded Shakti, the combination of physical, moral, material, and spiritual. Aurobindo also uh, talked about the passive resistance. According to Sri Aurobindo, for a subject country, the attainment of political independence was its highest goal. But there were different means to attain the goal. In India, for Indian patriots, three alternative means were available to win Swaraj, and they were as follows. कौन से रोइला? Method of prayers and petitions, method of armed revolt, method of self-development and passive resistance. से अरविंद कहले जे to win freedom, to win India, to achieve independence, India को तीनटा जिनस उपरे the people of India has to follow three major means, adopt three major means. कौन से मेथड गुड़ा कौन तीनटा major method of prayer and petitions, method of armed revolt, method of self-development and passive resistance. Passive resistance कौन to challenge the authority of the state by following non-violent means, because under the present circumstances, armed conflict or a violent aggressive resistance in the form of sabotage, assassinations, and terrorism was not possible and desirable. You see, Aurobindo Ghosh, while he was in the under the fold of the under the manner of extremist ideology, was favoring, advocating for violent overthrow, was advocating for a violent battle against the imperial forces. But later in stage, he promoted, advocated passive resistance as a major means in a non-violent way to achieve independence instead of displaying resistance in a violent manner like sabotage, assassination, terrorism, and etc., which is, you know, is a rare chance of getting into success. Desirable, also, not desirable. According to Sri Aurobindo, passive resistance work on two levels. पहले प्रथम रहला ये कौन लोक मान को एनकरेज करुची सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट आउ स्वदेशी और नेशनल एजुकेशन प्रमोट करिवारे आउ सेकंड लेवल ले ये प्रेशर पकोची गवर्नमेंट ऊपर जो कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट ऊपर टू कंसीड द डिमांड्स ऑफ द पीपल सो गोटी रे से गोटी की पासिव रेजिस्टेंस कौन कहूची ना गोटी दिगरे सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट स्वदेशी टाकू लोक मान भितर गोटे जागरण सृष्टि कराउची आउ द्वितीय सेकंड लेवल ले it considers the demands of the people against the government and so so now we have this is the things so there might be questions like Aurobindo's theory of nationalism, spiritual nationalism, as we have told, and the Swami Vivekananda's theory of social change. Again, there might be question from like Sri Aurobindo's views on the in Renaissance of Hinduism, or the evil effects of British rule according to him. British साम्राज्यवाद रो भारतर समाज एवं नैतिक भारतर नैतिक समाज एवं सामाजिक जीवन रे ब्रिटिश राज बा ब्रिटिश साम्राज्यवाद रो कुप्रभाव को Aurobindo's theory of state again Renaissance of Hinduism as I have told Neo-Vedanta philosophy of Swami Vivekananda, which he made it clear, a treatise in the American Chicago Religious Congress. So now we have completed, we are supposed to complete 6 units, but next class will read Hindutva, B.D. Savarkar and M.S. Golwalkar. And I have written a chapter, as I have told you, in an edited volume, modern Indian political thought on the political philosophy of Madhav Sadasiv Golwalkar, which is referred being as a part of the syllabus of the Delhi University course curriculum of the undergraduate and graduates, postgraduate students. So, dear students, we can stop here, and I think I have approached. When is in your next class? When is your next class? आपरे
Sir,
केबे अछि class?
काली अछि सर
कालीटा मुटे तांको कहिछि शिफ्ट करिवा लागि जेतु छुट्टी अछि ना आजी छुट्टी आजी इग्नो छुट्टी थिला आज भी ऑनेस्टली बहुत गुडा स्ट्रेस रे थिली गुडा काम करतु ना आई शुड कवर ऑफ दिस 3 यूनिट्स हमें जदी आवश्यक पड़े you may get a message from igno जे हमें
सर
एटा को गोटे फर्दर
सर
यस
क्वेश्चन गुड़ाक रिपीट टिके करिवे
ए जो एबे कहली ए लास्ट यूनिट रो
नहीं सर सर सब जाक टिके रिपीट करिए
अरे हमें जो 3टा यूनिट पढ़िले तो
सर कौन कहले?
हेलो
हाँ सर।
I mean তিনিটা यूनिट कवर कले सबुर क्वेश्चन ना लास्ट जो विवेकानंद and श्री अरविंद जोटा चाहे यूनिट
सर औरबिंदो से जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन था।
yeah. So because I have told you very often asked question देखिए बहुत बार पचरा जाता है normally and हमें भी डिग्री लेवल एवल्यूएशन करा पर भी irrespective हमें से क्वेश्चन टा बारंबार देखो the spiritual nationalism discuss the spiritual nationalism of Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Spiritual nationalism. ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ क्वेश्चन ରହିବ ତମର Sri Aurobindo's views on the renaissance of Hinduism. Okay. ଆଉ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଯୋଉଟା ମୁଁ ଲାଷ୍ଟ କହିଲି brief describe in brief the methods of passive resistance as advocated by Sri Aurobindo. এই তিনটা क्वेश्चन अरविंद श्री अरविंदଙ୍କର ବହୁତ ইম্পর্টান্ট ବୁଝିଲ କି हेलो
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
ହଁ ତାପରେ ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କ ଉପରେ discuss the new Vedanta philosophy of Swami Vivekananda. No? Discuss the new Vedanta philosophy of Swami Vivekananda and
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
अच्छा ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ତମର ଆସିବ Vivekananda's views on nationalism. Discuss. ଆଉ ଆଉ ସବୁଠୁ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ହେଲା ଯୋଉଟା କି ବହୁତ ଲୋକ କୁହନ୍ତି ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦ ଗୁଡା କ୍ରିଟିକ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦ ସୋସିଆଲ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ହାଇରାର୍କିକାଲ ସୋସିଆଲ ଅର୍ଡର ସୋସିଆଲ ଇନକୋହେରେନ୍ସ କି ସୋସିଆଲ ସ୍ଟ୍ରାଟିଫିକେସନ କାଷ୍ଟ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ଉପରେ ବେଶୀ କିଛି କହିନାହାନ୍ତି नो ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କର ଥିଓରି ଅଫ ସୋସିଆଲ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ବ୍ରିଫଲି discuss in brief Swami Vivekananda's theory of social change. এটা ବି important. ସେ କେମିତି relate କଲେ the new Vedanta philosophy କେମିତି wants a transformative changes of the Indian society and the social Hindu social order. ଠିକ ଅଛି ନେକ୍ସଟ କ୍ଲାସ ରେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିବା ହିନ୍ଦୁତ୍ୱରେ ମୁଁ ତ ବିଡି ସବରକର and MS ଗୋଲୱାଲକର ପଢିବା ଆଉ ତାପରେ मुस्लिम थॉट सर सईद अहमद खान मोहम्मद इकबाल मौलाना मौदूदी and मोहम्मद अली जिना कि मु टिके टिके डिस्कशन करिछि इन प्रिंस एटा भी ए दुटा चैप्टर हमें देखिबा ओके लागुनी एते चारिटा क्लास रे टू मच थिंग्स हमें जो मैंने एटा कोन कि काउंसलिंग मींस you you have to read and raise your doubts in the counseling class. Counseling means जदि चारिटा यूनिट को कवर करिबो गोटे क्लास 2 घंटा रे okay thank you for patience and I think today you did not get so much trouble these internet issues and the technical snacks although in between infrequently there are some technical snacks which due to the frequent phone call so but today it was audible and there was no internet issue
Yes, sir.
So next class you just inquire from the IGNO. But I have told them to shift into another 1 to 3 days after, because the evaluation work is going on. So I'm over hard pressed with that. So, in beginning, I approached them, requested them to see your other teacher, Mr. Behra. Dr. Behra is taking the class. From 2 to 5 o'clock. 2 to 5 o'clock classes is being held or being taken
ସାର୍
by.
ସେଠି ତ ମୋର ନଥିଲା ମୁଁ ଜାଣିନି ସାର୍।
Oh, all right, that is obstacle, right? Okay. Mr. Manas Behra is, I think, that Tapan, the desk clerk told me, sir is not taking the class, so you can finish within from 2 to 7. I don't know, this is not practicable. And it's completely not feasible also. Okay, thank you
Thank you,
for your
sir.
patient
Thank
hearing.
you, sir.
Yes. Okay. Then now leave.